Okay, we are live. Hello. Welcome to this live episode of the Social Media for Humans podcast, especially for Earth Day. I am Alexis Bushnell. My pronouns are she, her. I run Social Media for Humans, as you may expect, which is basically a membership, a community, a podcast, a blog for humans who want to use social media ethically and effectively for their business. So, will you please introduce yourselves? Mandy.
Hi, I'm Mandy Chowdhary. I'm the founder of Goodness Goodies, which is an online retailer and wholesaler which specializes in free-from products and vegan treats, basically products that make your life sweeter and greener.
Delicious. Kate.
Hello, I'm Kate Stansfield. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a freelance translator, copy editor, proofreader, project manager. Basically, I provide language services and specialise in sustainability and international development, ethical brands, not-for-profits mainly. Yeah.
Very good. Catherine.
Hi everyone, I'm Catherine. I'm she, her. I am a LinkedIn coach as well as a business mentor, and I run a community of women in sustainable business on Facebook. I also have a podcast called Where Ideas Launch for Sustainable Innovation.
Very good. Virginia.
Hello, I'm Virginia Cinquemani, the owner of the Green Gorilla Consultants Ltd, she, her as well. And the Green Gorilla effectively specializes in training and coaching for sustainability professionals to enhance their impact. So communication, selling, and all of this good stuff. I'm also a professional coach for sustainability people.
Very good. And Katie.
Hello, my name's Katie Skelton and I own and run Little Green Duck. I'm a visibility mentor for purpose-led and sustainable brands and businesses. So basically I help people to be more visible, reach more people, attract more opportunities, and make more of an impact in the world. My pronouns are also she, her.
Very good. We are going to be chatting today about the great things about running an ethical business, some of the hard things about running an ethical business, and then towards the end, we will offer some ideas for consumers who want to support ethical businesses and see more ethical businesses in the world. So let's start with the good stuff, the wins, this is why I really love being an ethical, sustainable business. Mandy, why do you love it?
Okay, so there are many reasons. I think ultimately it's about control over the products that I sell and wholesale, so that the end user has choice that's available to them that is outside of what the supermarket can offer. And it's about making those small changes sort of daily in the things that you would use, the way that you live your life, making the world a sort of better place for my children, for their children, and for so forth. And it's just, for me, the key thing is just small changes. And I think that's how I've sort of grown. And it enables me to work with brands and my supply chain also to have that control over who I'm choosing. So it's around that control part, making the right choices myself so that in turn people have choice.
Yeah, and it does create that ripple effect, doesn't it? If you're providing that choice, you're out there living in that way, it allows other people to go, oh yeah, this is a thing I can do, this is an option I have, which is really powerful.
Yeah, and I kind of do a local market in the area, and that's just to showcase the products, just so that there are other things. And for me, the key thing as well is affordability in an environment at the moment where there are increasing costs, with fuel and energy and food, that by not having a shop, I can keep overheads down. And that then in turn means that my prices are hopefully affordable or comparable to non-plastic versions of cleaning products and things like that. So keeping things really small and simple it enables me to be that little bit more sustainable in my business.
Yeah. Kate, what do you love about it?
When I was thinking about this, at first I thought I was going to struggle to articulate it, and then I ended up having a lot of thoughts. I think it boils down to, for me, the first thing is that a couple of years ago, because I've been doing what I do for 11 plus years, but it was about 2 or 3 years ago, I had a bit of an epiphany where I realized I wasn't loving what I was doing every day, even though I love translating and I love languages. So it's the realization that I can actually do what I love and what I'm good at, but also embrace this passion and drive I have to help drive positive change. And that was a complete revelation. And it's opened so many, that second part of it is opening up my eyes to this whole world of like-hearted. That's a phrase I heard the other day, and I really love other business owners, and not just business owners, individuals as well. But I always felt slightly like I didn't fit in terms of what I was trying to do in my personal life. And then I did feel that something was missing, and to be able to address the issues that are really important in the world today and the challenges we have in my business as well. And to meet and converse and collaborate and connect with other people doing the same thing and see this kind of movement growing, that to me is amazing. So kind of community and collaboration as well. And within the translation industry, often it's all about competition and rates and blah, blah, blah. So this has just enabled me to connect with other linguists as well as other people outside of the industry on this level of like working together for that common goal, if that makes sense. There's a lot of thoughts, like I said.
Yeah. Has anybody else had that feeling of like when you first started, maybe you felt like outside and like everybody else in the business, the industry that you were in was like, this specific way, and you were like, this is not really my vibe?
Absolutely.
It's interesting.
Me too, 100%.
Yeah, some spaces feel so icky sometimes, and you're just like, oh, I don't want to be there.
Yeah.
I think particularly those of us who are involved with like coaching and mentoring as well, the coaching industry has got quite a bad reputation for not being particularly ethical at times. And so it's just really nice to be in spaces with people who actually get it and know that you don't have to do all those things to run a successful business, an impactful business. It's so refreshing. And so like I did think for a while that I was never going to find that. And so it's nice to have finally felt like I like Kate said, fit in somewhere, and this is my place.
Yeah.
I think also there is an element of, I don't know, contrast between being a business owner and having ethical purposes. So sometimes it's a bit of a battle internally to say, do I prioritize profit or do I prioritize my values? And I think that's never gonna go to sleep for me. But I know that what I do can help others to be successful at pushing sustainability. So for me, that is what drives. But sometimes there is that I don't fit within the business world exactly, but I do, because without me, possibly, other people will suffer or will go to somebody that is more unethical than I can be. So yeah, living the
I have that dichotomy, that issue as well, with some of the products that I buy. Whilst they may have a good story and their values align with mine, not all of their packaging may be compostable or plastic free. And I've been, particularly one brand, I've been importing them for many, many years. And, I have conversations with them around their packaging. When are they going to move to a plastic free? Just they're vegan, their product's vegan, but yet their packaging's in plastic. And so, there is that sort of balance. And do I stop supplying them, or I will stop supplying them to my customers, or do I just, will carry on, which is what I'm doing at the moment, and know that other brands carry their packaging is in better and compostable packaging. So yeah, I do have that quite a lot. There's about 180 brands that I have that I stock. So not always everyone's going to completely align with your values. And on a day-to-day level, whilst I may kind of try and live as green as I can, I don't always. I do drive a car, for instance, and so I think there's a balance. There's only so much you can do, and sometimes you could kind of overwhelm yourself if you're doing something. Like, I will go to the supermarket and I will buy a cucumber that might be wrapped in plastic. I try not to, but sometimes if you can't always do what you want to do, but if you try a little bit, just small changes, and where you can make a difference, make that difference. I guess that's how I resonate it anyway.
Yeah, it kind
I
of.
think
Sorry, I was going to say.
I was going to say, I think. I'll just say, for me, that's like part of the community. The power of community is meeting other people who are really invested in this and have that same battle and that same worry, and hearing other people go, oh, it really bothered me to have to. Somebody was buying a pillow the other day and they could not find one that was like ethically sourced and wasn't, plasticky and all this. And they looked everywhere and they just couldn't find one. And seeing other people have that discussion like with themselves and other people is so helpful and validating to be able to go, okay, nobody else is doing it perfectly either. We're all just doing our best.
Well, also, it's a really good opportunity to learn from other people too, isn't it? Like, I've seen people who have like similar values to me, but their focus at a given time is slightly different. And so someone will be really heavily focusing on the digital carbon footprint of their website. And everybody else in the community, I'm thinking of someone specific here, everyone else in the community then goes, oh my goodness, yeah, I could look at this too. And being able to bounce those ideas off each other and learn from each other, because we are all at different stages of our journeys, is actually a big win. If we're talking about wins, that's a really good thing.
Yeah, definitely. I have learned incredible amounts over the past year or two. I mean, I didn't know what a digital carbon footprint was a year, 18 months ago. Definitely didn't really think about the impact of my website, etc. And everything I've learned has been from other people I'm connected with online, and other people running similar businesses. And so many different service-based businesses just sharing resources and knowledge. It's that sense of community once again. Sorry, I may have to just go and see to a delivery.
I wanted to touch on what Virginia was saying about the sort of conflict that she lives with between profit and purpose in some way. And it's interesting. I mean, when I look at some of the more successful sustainable businesses, it's really driven from this community place. So the same conversation that we're having, but it's really driven from this collective and this community. And with that understanding, there's an understanding that we all need to live, right? So I think it's really about finding your niche, finding your community, and finding that space where it becomes easy. It's an easier transaction. It's not a hard sell. It's an easy transaction because you're providing a service that's of value to someone else, right? And I think you're right. It takes a bit. It takes a bit to find that. It takes a bit to create that, and to make a welcoming space that people can engage with. But it's so worth it when you have it, right? And then it feels easy.
Virginia, do you have thoughts?
In terms of why I enjoy what I do?
Yeah.
Yes. So I started many years ago, I don't want to say how many, by studying and working in architecture. And at that point, I realized that actually what I wanted to do was the common sense thing. And the common sense was to build, at that time, buildings that were green, as they were called when I'm talking about. So over the years, I shifted. I don't do design anymore. But that core idea of I need to do the right thing. I need to do the thing that makes more sense. Waste that doesn't make any sense. Mistreating the world that we live in doesn't make any sense. So for me, this has been really the thread throughout my career, and what really makes me wake up in the morning and really put all my effort into this. And I love it. Since I started working in line with my values, And it sounds a bit cliche, but actually it makes the world of difference. So when you got long days and maybe, you know, the money is not what you would like it to be, or whatever it is that you know, or you have a horrible client that, you know, that sort of puts you in trouble, or whatever it is. If you have that connection with the values that you believe in, although imperfectly, like Mandy was saying, you know, I still drive a car. You know, one day when I try and avoid, you know, car journeys, but as much as I can, I live in line with my values imperfectly. And I think that is what makes me enjoy every day of what I do. And I do a bunch of different things. But that's the thread, this value-driven idea of supporting others and try and leave, you know, a light footprint or no footprint when possible.
Yeah, I think coming back to sort of what Catherine was saying as well, I think the balance of profit, purpose, how sustainable can I like realistically be? For me, a lot of it is as well about being honest with your audience and saying like this is what I am doing and these are the things that I would like to do, but they're not feasible right now for me. Like for various reasons, I cannot do these certain things, but they are on my long-term plan. I am aware of them. And I think one of the sort of, obviously at the minute, everybody's terrified about cancel culture. And for me, that is one of the ways to counteract it, is to not pretend that you are the peak of sustainable or ethical business and to just go, look, I'm doing my best. This is what I know about. If you know of something else, I would love to hear about it. Let's chat, let's share those ideas. And to not essentially sort of put yourself on that pedestal as like, look at me, I am super, do everything I do, because nobody is.
Nobody will.
None of us are.
People turn people off. Yeah,
Not
I mean,
at all.
it's about communicating these actions, isn't it, and what is possible, but in a really realistic way and inspiring others. They're not going to be inspired if they just literally look at that and go, well, that's just not achievable or attainable. Switch off to it.
Yeah, and also probably not true either. It's like,
No.
even if you're saying I'm the most sustainable person in the world, as Mandy says, sometimes you just really need a cucumber. And you've got to, I never thought I would say that on a live podcast.
It's that transparency, and again back to ethics. It's, you know, the two are.
But you know, I don't know about you guys, but I think also the pandemic helped in that sense. So with the horrible couple of years that we had, that more relaxed attitude towards ourselves, and, you know, sort of, I got a delivery and I'm going to pick it up. You know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't, you know, it does. It doesn't, I don't know how to say that, but it doesn't relax standards as such, but actually it shows the true face of human beings. And I like the idea of doing my best and not trying to live up to a standard that is just unattainable. And I think having done an enormous amount of Zoom calls in my pajamas and my Crocs, which I'm not going to show you, but I do wear them right now, help me feeling a little more relaxed about not having stilettos on. And it doesn't matter, nobody cares, so long as you're doing the best in, you know, for your business and for your clients.
Yeah,
I do feel there's a lot less pretense in general.
Yes.
Which is
I had a situation recently, in fact this week, where I collaborated with a big tech company that doesn't have the best reputation, and we have a discussion going on about them sponsoring an awards that I'm bringing out, and the team that's helping me kind of challenged whether or not we should allow this big tech firm to support us. And it's an interesting debate, because yes, it can be perceived as greenwashing for sure, but at the same time, do you leave them with their money and let them go into space with it? Like, you know, should we try to use that money to do something that actually makes a difference? And I find this kind of conflict it comes up a lot, right? Like trying to make that right ethical decision. It's not so simple.
Wow.
I don't know how you guys feel about that. What would you do?
I think for me, I would be having the discussion of, I will happily take your money, but also then try to use it as a way to push them on certain issues. Maybe pick like 1 or 2 issues that are their biggest sort of problem areas, and go in with like, you know, I would love to work with you on this, but what are you prepared to commit to? You know, what are you prepared to actually do so that this isn't just a PR stunt? Because I don't want it to just be a PR stunt for you. I don't want to be used in that way to make you look impressive. Yeah, so that's what I would do. Anybody else?
I agree. And, you know, sometimes you criticize, I mean, I've been boycotting McDonald's for 20 plus years. But what do you do when McDonald's are saying that they sell vegan, whatever it is, food? Do they have to close completely their shops, or can they transition, you know, towards a better ethical, you know, business effectively? I don't know. It's a difficult one. I agree with you, Alexis, that probably that's the way. You know, let's have a chat. You know, what will you do? Because if this is just to look good in front of people, then no thanks. And I know lots of business owners that, you know, they're doing sustainable business, don't want to deal with the baddies, but at the same time they are the ones who need the doctor, right? They are the ill people that need the doctor, not necessarily people. Because I know that this community can be quite close in that sense, and we talk to each other a lot. We know each other quite a bit, and it's difficult to come out of that bubble. So I think welcoming people that are, you know, supposedly not as good might be a way to breaking into mainstream.
Yeah. Catherine actually has just left a comment saying, do we think that a company starting as a PR stunt can subsequently learn to be more ethical? That's a good question.
I mean, I think that no company really entirely does it as a PR stunt, because there are humans working in these spaces, right? So, for example, in this film, the person that I collaborate with there, I know she's committed to real change. Whether or not the whole organization is another conversation, but the people who are doing these things usually are. So it's quite a difficult one to answer. I think ultimately businesses, as big as they are, they're still humans, and there's still different opinions inside there, just as there are different opinions outside here. So tough one.
Yeah, I agree, Catherine. But I also think I've lost my train of thought, so you may need to come back to me. What do I think? Who knows? No, I've remembered when you mentioned there's somebody that you're dealing with that's your contact in the business that's committed. I think people like us who are kind of helping people to see that sustainability and ethical practices are the way to go. Having someone like that as a bit of an ally for you, if you're within a business that you think, oh, they don't align with my values, is massively valuable, because you could be going in and going, right, okay, these are the things that you could be doing, and these are the things that you could be communicating to your management or the owners of the business to try and make some small changes to try and drive that big business towards a more ethical or sustainable model. So I think that if you get the opportunity, well, it sounds like you do have the opportunity, and you've got someone who's already aligned with you, then as a partnership, you could actually change the world.
I do think the internal change management is tough. Like before coming to the sustainability space, I worked for 7 years in the controversial industry in change management. So it's tough. It's not an easy gig, but at the same time, it has to be done. Someone has to do it, right? So you need these in any organization. The people who choose these type of roles, it's usually purpose driven. And I think one of the conflicts is when you're committed to social impact and change, and you work in that space, you work in the NGO space, the funding isn't always there. So you go to the big corporate to get the funding to put it where it needs to be, and that's the challenge that I think perception wise from the outside, it's like, oh my God, why are you working there? Why are you collaborating with this firm? But something has to be done, and the resources needed. So for any of these missions that we have, these sustainable missions that we have, we need to take care of ourselves, but we also need to take care of our communities. And part of the way to do that is to get this support. So I guess it's an education thing, I guess, as well. So it's like when you decide to commit to going with a company like that has a sort of prominent face, probably in not the right direction, it's really about how you communicate it, I guess. I'm going to find out, because if I start doing this and it doesn't quite work out, I might have learned a lesson. But I think that's the key. Is like, you have to be courageous enough to take that journey.
Like you say, somebody's got to do these really hard things, otherwise nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I think from a PR point of view as well, I think it can, if they do it as a PR stunt, and then the reaction that they get is like, this is amazing, we want to support this company, that, you know, and sales increase, they see a difference, they see that it was beneficial to their business. I do think that can push them further down that road, because they see, because especially with like big corporates, like that's what they care about, is their bottom line. You know, they care about seeing an increase in sales and an increase in this and an increase in that. And so if you can demonstrate through that PR greenwashing stuff, like, actually, this is going to be good for your business, I do think it can push for actual change in the business itself.
But the other element there is that if they approach you, Catherine, it means that they already see partly why associating with an ethical business has a value. So big businesses got their own insight and their own intelligence. So they know that. It's just, it takes time to change a big business from their core ideas and values into an ethical business. Especially big businesses got so many, you know, shareholder interest and stakeholder interest, etc., that come in between. But this, I think, is commendable in a way, when they want to associate with a smaller business, but actually an ethical one. It means they're starting to wake up to that. So I don't think it's all bad, but I'm an optimistic by nature. So probably that's just me looking at the, you know, bright side of life.
Yeah.
We do see more businesses reporting not just on their bottom line, but there is a bit more about people, planet, profit. You know, there is that sort of triple reporting going on.
Yeah.
More impact assessments as well. You know, you see more and more of those coming out, where people are sort of saying, well, we've done this, but we've offset against this, and, you know, just to demonstrate that they are doing that a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point to switch to the difficult stuff. I'm going to read a comment from Tracy, because I think this kind of can start us off. And Tracy's put, as a traditional graphic designer, I've had many discussions about the carbon footprint of web and social media over the years. Sometimes print and other materials need to be considered, and the life expectancy and preservation of the product. And I think this is, for me, one of the woes, the difficulties, the hard things about running, is that decision-making process of like, where do I focus my efforts, and where do I say, no, I can't do that right now. That's I want to make that change, but it's not feasible. So for me, definitely that is one of the big difficulties, and the things that I hate about running an ethical business is like, there are so many areas that I am aware of, and that's without even thinking about the things I don't even know about yet. And like, there's all these areas that I want to make changes in, and it's just not possible to do it all at once.
No, so it's where to start. Yeah, exactly the same, and especially when it is just you. It, in terms of money and time and effort, like you literally can't attack everything at once. And I think it's a mistake to do so. That's the main thing I've learned over the past year. I was really lucky to be involved in a project with the University of York last year, with community sustainability champions, and that enabled me to work with a team of students of undergrads at York from all different disciplines, who asked me the area to really look at the areas of my business, the main areas that I felt would have I could make the biggest impact. And they went away and did a lot of research for me. So that was a great kind of springboard. I think if you can sit down and, because every business is different, try to establish, you know, where you might be having that social environmental impact. Again, it's still difficult, but it's something to start with. I also really love the idea of the Venn diagram of, this is an idea that I've heard on the How to Save a Planet podcast, and starting with joy, so what you love, and what you can do, so your skill, and then what and need, so what you feel is like the most critical thing at the moment, and kind of identify one thing, and then kind of being a Venn diagram in the middle is like just your starting point, and it gives you a bit of direction, and you can apply that to your business. It's just one idea, but it's definitely something I struggle with. I did a post really early this morning about ecology, the tree planting and reforestation, and how I agonized. I was inactive in that element of my business impact for so long because I couldn't make the decision about what the best impact would be. And so I just stalled on it. And that's so often the case as well, I think. It's hard to know what might just, again, be greenwashing or just make you look like you putting on a show of being environmentally minded and not actually, and that thing isn't actually making the big impact you think it is. So I went with a lot of recommendations, but I'm getting messages even now while we're on this about, but I was worried about this because so-and-so said this about tree planting. And yeah, it's really hard. So I've rambled on a lot.
No, I agree with you, Kate. I think that the whole overwhelm thing is massive, because I feel like overwhelm leads to procrastination. Procrastination leads to inaction. And if you're not taking any action at all because you're worried about what you should be focusing on, then obviously that's not a great thing. So I'm trying really, really hard to just focus myself on like one thing at a time. Like, okay, there are loads of things that I want to do, but if I try and think about all of them at the same time, then I'll shut down and then nothing will get done. So trying to kind of temper myself and my need to just act on everything and do all the things is a bad habit I'm trying to get out of. And it's something, just to address Tracy's point as well. I used to work in the broadcast industry, and lots of the conversations that I've had with people more recently since moving into running my own business, I've spoken to business owners back in my old industry, and it's really hard to get everybody involved to actually care enough about like the end of life of product, like the products that we're talking about, like the big like broadcast TV cameras or big pieces of equipment that take loads of resources to create, but the manufacturers are not, or weren't until recently, thinking about end of life or what happens when you need to trade it in for the newer model. It's the same with iPhones, isn't it? Like, how many iPhones just get binned or like stuck in a drawer for 5 years because you want the latest one? And I think so making people care, or trying to encourage people to care in the first place, is hard. And also just that the time-consuming element of doing the research you need to do in order to align with your own values. Like, it's harder to go, right, okay, where can I buy something that is completely plastic-free, compostable, vegan, blah, 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 that ticks all of my ethical boxes. It's easier just to go down to your local supermarket, and I'm not going to keep mentioning cucumbers. But,
a good start.
Yeah, but it's I think that it's difficult to, for every single area of your life, do that depth of research that satisfies everything and ticks every box. So I think just starting with the thing that's most important to you, as Kate was saying, starting with the thing that's most important to you, and then building from there and doing more research as you go along, rather than feeling like you have to do all the research in one go, is probably a better approach. And again, something I'm not great at, but working on.
I'm going to quote the owner of Patagonia, who's famously said, to live the exam life is a pain in the ass. Because it is. Because you made the choice to have, you know, an ethical business, to try and live your life in line with your values, blah, blah, blah. But you find that at the moment, the world doesn't transition completely into ethical. And in fact, probably we're still a minority, although it's better than what it was when I started 16 years ago. But it is, you know, all the research, all that. For me, that's one of the main difficulties. Although, of course, when you find a product or something, then you tend to keep subscribing. So you mentioned, Kate, you mentioned ecology. So also I pay for ecology, etc. But it's tree planting. We know already this is not the solution. And I think the main difficulty in sustainability and ethical business is there is not a solution or one solution that fits all. And so you have to keep updating and keep informed and look around. And it is exhausting, because in the end of the day, you also have a business to run, and you have to, you know, get money to feed your children or whatever it is. So it is an extra layer of difficulty, I would say. And also you have a reputation now that you have to keep up. So yes, we're human, but at the same time, we do need to provide an example to other people and our clients and on social media. So it's a lot of pressure, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah, I feel like a double pressure, both, as you say, to be keeping up with things. So the more I've learned about digital carbon footprint, etc., and the actions that you can take to minimize that. And then, as you say, you get busy, you're running your business, and you realize that you're not really kind of practicing what you preach there. There's that pressure to constantly keep at it, but also the pressure I feel is to keep, because I really strongly believe that it's crucial to communicate those changes you're making and the action you're taking. So it's like double whammy of pressure. Yeah.
Because with a you know, as being a shop, it's quite easy for me, as I've said, to find the products fit with my value. But what it's not so good at is to show what you are doing, aside from showcasing your products. So that comes back down to what I was saying about the impact assessment. For instance, I've signed up with Too Good to Go, which is about eliminating or reducing food waste. So any stock that's a little bit out of date or soon to be out of date, I create magic bags. Somebody comes around, they pay a third of the value. And that's a nationwide scheme, you know, for anybody. So many businesses have joined up. But I don't necessarily tell people how much food I've saved in doing so, nor indeed, you know, planting trees or whatever else I might be doing, any sort of offsetting. That side of it falls down because it is just me doing everything. And so some things just drop, you know, and that is the frustrating time of it, irrespective of the sustainability element or the ethical side of running a business. There's just time that to do everything. So you make choices. You just do. In my case, I make the choices to get the orders out, you know, do those kind of operational things. The things that hit you first, you just get on with.
Yeah. And I find that frustrating too, because I'm concentrating on getting projects out, when really I would like to be spending more time as well on finding those clients who are making the positive change. Not all of the clients I work with are my ideal client in that sense. So it's hard, that balance. I would like to be spending more time to in turn increase my positive impact by working with more worthwhile, perhaps, clients, but there isn't always enough hours in a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are those sort of struggles you have?
I was just going to go back to that same point that I talked about with Virginia as well, on the money and the work of ethics. And I think it's really difficult. Like, how can we stand up and fight for the income generation that we need to support this? and still feel ethical. Like that's a constant sort of battle that people have. And for me, it's like I don't do well on that, right? So I don't do well on that balance. I don't make enough at times, and I'm always having to compensate with savings or past income and stuff when I don't push hard enough. And then the question is like where do you stop? Where do you go? And this is one of the reasons I'm thinking about incorporating this sort of getting resourcing or getting funding side of things to see how those projects can build more. So that's really ultimately the struggle is like what compromises do I have to make on taking in that sort of money versus going out and trying to build it on my own. So it's like it's always this balance.
Catherine, this is something that I get a lot of clients who come with me with, as a problem, because as I said before, I support sustainability professionals to sell sustainability ethically. And that doesn't mean that I don't go through the same problem in a way. But then you have to give yourself a little pep talk in terms of what you're doing is actually pushing something that the world will benefit from. So when we sell our services or our products, and they are better products and services than others because they have that extra layer of ethical or sustainable, etc., we are actually, well, first of all, serving our client better because we are addressing their issues. So that's the thing, which is the same that another company could do without the extra layer of ethical and sustainable. So it's a double whammy, like we said before. So I think when I think about my business in that sense, if I don't push my services out there, that means that the potential clients will go to somebody that has not the same values as I have. And they might not gain, that momentum in pushing sustainability. Support, for example, sustainability consultants to sell their services better. If they're not able to do that, then their clients will miss out, and it's that ripple effect. So, and I think for everyone in this room will be the same. Unless we push our services out there, the world will suffer. We don't know how much of a ripple effect we actually cause by even signing up one more client. And that's the thing that really motivates me to keep in business, really. Because even if it's a small business, we can have a massive impact that we don't even imagine.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'm going to say something controversial, but I often wonder because I've worked in big corporate and now I work for myself. I often wonder if I wouldn't make a bigger impact in a bigger space that had more resourcing than in my small space. I often wonder that. I often have that debate with myself. Would I be able to create more change if I led social impact in one of these spaces and did more? And that's also a constant debate, right? And it's not that I don't think small businesses have impact. I do think we do. We are the most of the businesses around the world, right? We generate something like 70% of all the employed revenue kind of thing that comes in. But at the same time, it's fundamentally the big companies have the biggest impact, and the biggest change needs to happen there. So
I'm gonna argue on that on one point only, because it's true, some big company might have a bigger impact, but think about Greta, which we seem to have forgotten about. A 16-year-old at that time sitting with a hand-painted sign, she with her own, just her, she moved the world. And I think lots of things have changed as a consequence. It was just one little girl. So, and I think a lot of the big thinkers that, we might want to mention here were single, one person with a big vision. And I think we shouldn't forget that big vision. But saying that, of course, if you are in a bigger pond, you're, big fish, then, you might have a bigger impact, but not necessarily.
I feel the same, Catherine. I feel exactly the same. But the way I kind of rationalize it is I know that I work better in a space where I feel safe and supported and connected with the people I'm connected with. In a big corporation where I don't feel like I'm in my element, I don't feel like it's harder work, and maybe you're better cut out to do it than I am, and this is why you're struggling with it more. But I think the way I rationalize it to me is, I'm trying to create a business here that actually supports the life that I want to lead, as well as changing the world. Not a big ask, obviously. And but I know that if I was working, say, in a big bank, trying to change them from the inside, I wouldn't be happy. I'm happy doing what I'm doing. And if that means that I make slightly less impact as a result, at least I'm making an impact in a way that's actually making me feel a bit more whole and a bit less soulless and unsupported, and like I'm fighting against a machine that just cannot be fought against. So I kind of stay in my safe space and my friendly space because I like all of you. I don't like working for a big company.
But that comes back again to joy and skills. So you're playing to your strengths there, and I think that's crucial because everyone will have different strengths and operate better and be more comfortable in different environments.
Yeah, and some people really. I know someone who runs a pigeon sanctuary. Bear with me here. A pigeon sanctuary. She's called Little Green Pigeon, if you want to go and look her up on Instagram. And she absolutely thrives on conflict. Like, it's her thing that she loves, changing people's perceptions through conflict. And it's like she genuinely loves it. That would just fill me with dread every day. If I came onto my Instagram page and see floods of comments, like anti-me comments, it would destroy me.
Yeah, but we need people like that.
Yeah, and like, so as you say, different people thrive in different environments and in different ways of working and different ways of communicating. And if it's working and it's helping you make an impact, then great. But that kind of conflict is not for me.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I think that's something that we do tend to forget as well. I think when we're talking about like sustainability and ethics, we tend to forget that like it needs to be sustainable for us as well. Like, we have to factor into it. Like, it's not, to me anyway, like, it's not ethical for me to prioritize all of the causes that I want to help above like me. Like, that's not an ethical choice. Like, I have to be looked after as well. I matter as well. And I think that can cause some of that conflict is when we're having that debate of like, but all of these things are so important, and like I'll be fine if I don't make enough money for the next 3 months or whatever. I'll be fine if I don't speak to another human being for the next week. Like, these things, like, we're always prepared to make sacrifices for ourselves where we go without. And that's actually, in my mind, not really that sustainable as a choice and not really that ethical.
No,
and I think it's also something that is kind of expected, and that there can often be pushback when you don't make that sacrifice and you stand up and say, I am making this sustainable for me.
Yeah, but it doesn't serve that purpose either, because, I hope I articulate this reasonably well. So absolutely, Katie and Alexis, you mentioned how the way you work, etc., it's got to be sustainable and ethical for you. It's got to allow you to live that life that you want to lead. And often with us, it's, so for example, in my case, I need to earn more because I actually want to work less, because I want to spend more of my time not sitting at my desk and down the allotment growing my own food, or in the community doing the local climate action that I desperately want to do and don't have time and resources to do because I need to be working all the time. So it's, and we are humans, so why can't we think of ourselves as, whole people, not just our work, but it's one element of our lives, and as humans, the effect, the impact we can have as a whole, holistically, if that makes sense.
Totally. And I think I'd much rather have a smaller impact on a long-term basis than go and have a big but very short-lived impact that results in me burning out or feeling awful about myself. So yeah, that sustainability from a personal point of view is huge for me as well.
I think
it's going back to Catherine's point about the big businesses. and the change needs to come from there. And that is very true. If we want bigger change in our climate change, if you like, it needs to come from those larger corporations. But that's not to say that small businesses and lots of small businesses collectively can make a bigger change. And I've been reading loads about that. So since COVID, there have been lots of small businesses that have set up, like little entrepreneurs doing this, selling this, doing things as a result of it. And that will have an impact to the bigger change. It doesn't need to come from the bigger corporations, but we have to be mindful of the fact that the big corporations are probably causing a lot of the damage. So if you can get in there and make that impact, absolutely. But collectively, small businesses can also make change.
And also lead the way. And I think that comes back to, or leads on to, thinking about consumers and the pressure they can put on the bigger corporations to change their ways. Because I think there is a growing tide of people choosing these smaller businesses, smaller, more ethical, sustainable businesses. The evidence is there. That's what more and more people want. And that's where pressure and system change will come from. So sort of leading nicely on to the impact consumer choice can have.
Yeah, I thought about this a lot, and I really struggled with how to sort of answer it, or how to, and it was like, yes, consumers, going on to your question, Alexis, you know, consumers can influence businesses by choice, by being careful about what they choose. But aside from that, I did struggle with what else, really. Lobbying, yes, but all of this then comes, as what Katie was saying, that, you know, sometimes time, money, those constraints that we have as individuals influence how we buy and how we shop, and whether you feel you actually make a difference. There are lots of people, if one was to look at studies, if they were to answer what stops you, it would be, do I actually make a difference? So if collectively lots of people think like that, then I don't know how they. I struggled with this question.
Do you know, I also, one of my various things that I do is that I teach at Coventry University, and this semester we looked at the behavior, the science behind the behavior of people adopting sustainability or not. And it's really interesting because science is not conclusive in that sense, and we're all driven by different things. Price, which I think could be a big element, sometimes is not, and it's just a justification. It's just, you tell yourself, oh, it is costly, when actually it might be social pressure. Maybe, you know, the people you live with would disagree with your choices. It can be as well availability, or, you know, the fact that something is not as easy to use because it's sustainable, or, you know, it's not that accessible. So accessibility is another element. There's so many things that come into play when you think about the choice people make. For example, here where I live in St. Albans, there's a lovely little shop that sells zero waste produce. So you go there, you fill your bags, and you come back with oats and pasta and whatever. Unfortunately, it is more pricey because they try and source the best products, etc., etc. At the beginning, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to go there every week. And then I came with the reality of, actually, I need to stop and park or go, you know, on foot, and then, you know, because it's actually an awkward place with no parking. So I need to go on foot and carry all this stuff with me. It's actually the practicality of things. I need to remember my bags. I need to remember my, you know, Tupperware or whatever it is the practicality as well as the price for me that stop me from going. And now, bless them, they're closing because they don't have enough footfall. So it's not just one thing. And it's very, very hard for companies to actually understand what drives people. But I think we are witnessing a momentum in which actually these things are going to become more obvious, and they're going to become more accessible. And I think for those of us that have been in this space for a few years, you will see the difference, you know, between 10 years ago and now. we are already in a different world from what it was in terms of sustainability and accessibility of sustainable products or ethical services. So it's just, things are changing. It just takes time, and a lot of it is actually the society we live in, I believe.
I think as well, oh, sorry, I was just going to say about habits, right? Because the same way we're talking about, we're implementing or integrating different aspects at different times. I think it's the same thing for the consumer base, right? And it's not easy to adopt wholesale a whole bunch of new habits at once. So people will make some incremental changes in their lives. There will be things that are harder to sacrifice than others because it will feel like a sacrifice. And until you socialize yourself around, this is actually better than this option when I look at everything. It just takes time. It just fundamentally takes time. And yes, it's important for consumers. I think consumers make the biggest impacts on what businesses actually do. I think it's the only reason big businesses are changing today, because of that relationship. But it's also just on fundamental economics, right? I don't know if any of you've read Kate Raworth's Donut Economics. I love that book. It's such a good, insightful book about how we manage economics today. And when you look at that, it's like, ultimately, if we continue to let the big get bigger, they won't have customers. They won't have communities to buy from them. They won't be able to sustain what they're doing. And I think that's becoming more and more evident to people, that fact, that impact that we have, as well as the companies. So I think it's really about habit forming and creating an environment to include that new habit incrementally. And it is going to be a journey, but it will happen. I think in the next 3-4 years, we will see, as Virginia says, a huge sea change.
Yeah, I think starting small is the way, isn't it? And another thing that has become really apparent to me it's not necessarily how you're approaching businesses and how to get businesses to change, but from a consumer point of view, from an individual point of view, communication is everything. Like, I used to run a vegan food blog, and the number of my friends who still come to me and go, "Oh, have you still got that recipe for that?" And like, that is just, it's not even leading by example. It's more just showing how these habits, these changes, these products can be quite easy once you get into the swing of it. And if 10 people say to me, "Can I have your vegan noodles recipe?" then that's a win in my eyes. And I'm not going and like standing up in front of all my friends going, "This is why you should do this." But if they see a piece of clothing I'm wearing that just happens to be from a small sustainable brand, then I'll share that with them and I'll let them know, like, this is where I got it from, this is why I've bought it, this is the difference I'm hoping to make. And just communicating your own journey and how some changes can be really easy, and also communicating how some changes are not as easy and it can be a struggle. And like, yes, I was addicted to cheese once, but I'm not anymore. Like, that kind of thing, and that kind of conversation just on a day-to-day basis with friends and family, or sharing on your social media, can be hugely powerful. Even if you don't feel like you've got any influence, people are watching and listening and taking note.
100%. For me, I think the biggest example in my life has been with cloth nappying. So out of my particularly close circle of friends, I was the first one to have kids and use cloth nappies. Not all the time, not full time, not from the start. Various ups and downs with it, because it's a bit of a journey. And I never once lectured anyone on that. I never banged on about it. It was there. It was in their faces. They saw it in real life. And when they came to have kids, so many of them messaged me when they were pregnant and asked for advice. Where do I start? What do I do? It's really confusing. So I gave them that advice, and some kept with it, some didn't. But like you say, one person using one reusable nappy a week is a win in my eyes. But there are so many instances of that. It is just sharing your journey. 100%.
Yeah. I think it's that normalizing it as well.
Yeah.
And normalizing it, but with honesty. Because I do think, like, when I first went vegan, there were so many things that I bought and tried because all the comments and the reviews were like, "This is amazing, this is incredible." And I swear to you, people were just saying that because they wanted people to eat vegan. And I tried stuff and I was like, this is absolutely disgusting. I do not know why you think this is nice. And I think like it's okay to say like this is a vegan product, but it tastes vile. You know, like it's okay to have that opinion. And it's so, I think because we're so eager to make the change and to see like that everything shift, it can be really, really tempting to make out that everything is amazing and everything is easy and it's why can't you just do this because it's just I did it and it's fabulous.
I had to force myself to say
need.
Yeah, I had to force myself to say the truth and to be honest, like you say, and say, you know, actually cloth nappies could be really annoying when this happens and that happens, but there might be a way around it, and it doesn't matter if you don't do it all the time and it doesn't suit you to do it this way or that way. Yeah, a really, really important part of it.
Yeah, and I think that as well is about dropping the judgment of yourself and of other people, and allowing people to try things, allowing people to do like meat-free Monday or use a cloth nappy once a week or whatever it is, you know, because it is, you know, like Catherine says, it's habit forming, and they're not gonna magically overnight form a habit that they do this thing all the time. You know, people need to ease into it and learn how to do it because it is often a very different way of living. It's not as simple as, oh, you just replace this for that. It's, you know, it's all the other things that go into it. And so it can be baby steps. It can be, you know, well, try this. And I think that's, I'm obviously going to be like, this is where social media comes in, because I do think social media is a really powerful place to cheer people on who are trying, and to, instead of responding with, you know, like Kate's saying, when planting the trees, instead of responding with like, that's not good enough, why did you choose that company, why are you doing that and not this, to respond more with like, that's amazing that you're doing that, here's what I learned. You know, I was going to do that, and share your own experience, rather than coming at it from a place of like, you're not doing enough, you're not, you know, how come you don't understand that this is wrong, and that level of judgment. So I do think it is really helpful through social media to be able to put out as well your own journey, because you're then able to influence people without, like Katie says, like having to stand up and go, hey, I'm vegan and I eat these things and you should too. You just get to share your own, like what you're eating, how you're living, what you're doing. And if people are interested, they can say, well, okay, can you send me that recipe? Where did you buy that thing? What do you know? How do you find doing this?
Do you know what that does, Alexis? Is a fundamental thing that human beings have in their mind. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here now. Is to conserve. So to preserve this status quo as it is, obviously, because that's our instinct. So we are, generally speaking, afraid of change. But the way forward in that sense, and what you're saying about, you know, trying this, or the social media element, is to lower the barriers. When you manage to lower the barriers to something which is completely unfamiliar for lots of people still, sustainability, ethical, etc., then you give them an opportunity to dip their toes into the water without falling into the water. And, you know, sort of overcoming that fear of change, that fear of the different, which unfortunately is what creates division in the world anyway. So I think the key for every ethical business is really to try and reduce that difficulty, that barrier, understand your customers so that you can help them along the way to say, okay, it's not that scary. You can try it. If you don't like it, no problem, you know, move on. It's okay. And I think that will make a huge difference from preaching, like some people really like doing, especially in the vegan community. Somehow, you know, preaching is the way forward, but actually don't convince anyone with preaching. Nobody wants to be preached at. So I think is that helpful, hopefully being helpful and lowering barriers, that will make a difference.
Yeah, definitely. And just being kind to people who are on a journey. I think like a lot of, I keep going on about the vegan thing because it's the single biggest change, habits shift that I've made in my life. But something that I always say to people is, it took me 35 years to get to the point I'm at. So I don't expect you overnight to go through this whole journey and go through all the thought processes that I went through, because it took me until 5 years ago to get to that point. So, and different people have different priorities. That person might have been using solid shampoo for 20 years before I even knew it existed. Like everybody, and I think you have to also be kind and understanding of other people's priorities. Like someone else might care a lot more about not using plastic and about ocean plastic than they do about animal welfare. And you have to understand and be compassionate about the fact that not everybody is going to have exactly the same set of priorities and in the same order as you are. And the kinder we all are to each other about just making the small changes, the better, because we like a bit of kindness, don't we?
Yeah, and I will add as well, for consumers who are looking to support, because obviously everybody knows you can buy from ethical businesses, like that's a no-brainer, but also engaging with ethical businesses on social media and reviewing their products and services. Like, please, if you have bought something or somebody's bought you something as a gift, like find out where it was from and go and leave a review. That makes such a huge difference, especially to small businesses. And it's something that we often forget to do, especially if we really enjoyed a product. If we hated it, we're much more inclined to go and leave a review. So I would like a little challenge for everybody listening. Go and leave a review. Find a product from an ethical business or a sustainable business that you have knocking around somewhere. Go and leave a review for it, so that you all can support that business. Thank you so much for being here. This has been fabulous. I have very much enjoyed this chat. I will whiz round now and ask you to promote your most favorite social media profile. If anybody wants to find any of these wonderful people, all the links will be in the description. So please go click around, but shout out your favorite social media profiles at the moment. Mandy.
Goodness Goodies at Instagram. Or do you mean my profile? Sorry, I'm all confused.
Yes, no, your profile. Yeah, your profile.
Okay,
yeah.
I was like someone that I follow.
Kate.
Kate.stansfield.translations at Instagram probably. Also over on LinkedIn.
Catherine.
LinkedIn for me, so Catherine Byam on LinkedIn, and Where Ideas Launch on Instagram. So that's my podcast.
Virginia.
For me, it's LinkedIn as well. Virginia Cinquemani. I don't know whether, but if you type, I suppose, Virginia the Green Gorilla, you will find me.
Katie.
So I mainly hang out on Instagram, and I'm Little Green Duck over there. But you can also find me under my own name, Katie Skelton, on LinkedIn.
Very good. And I am Alexis Bushnell on Instagram and also LinkedIn. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the lovely comments we have had as well. This has been fabulous. Like I say, all of the links to everybody who has been here will be in the show notes, in the description, so you can go and follow them and support these fabulous businesses. Thank you for being here.
And happy Earth Day to everyone.
Yes, thank you.